Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Second in Command podcast. My name is Timothy Simons.
I'm Matt Walsh.
It's just the two of us here today. Walshy. Oh, yeah, we used to be a V Rewatch podcast, but now we do this. We examine the politics of cinema and cinema about politics. Getting that out of the way. It's just the two of us. I'm excited about this, man.
Yeah, as dimly remembered through the veil
The
of
va-
the flawed veil of memory. I haven't seen you in a while.
I know it's been a bit. Like, we
It's a
really
good catch
haven't.
up.
Yeah. We've both been in and out of town a little bit. And and it's been really hard to find time to get in studio together. Do you want to just kind of catch up generally? Family good? Everybody good?
Family's good. Country's bad.
Uh huh.
What do you got?
Family's good. Country's bad. Yeah. I mean like it's kind of like one of those things you see somebody on the street and they're like, "You good? Yeah. You good? Yeah." And then you just keep walking. I don't know.
And we're still in the golden era of television. I mean, there's so much good stuff to distract ourselves with. It's
you know,
unbelievable. Have you done Andor? Did you do Andor
I
yet?
was just gonna bring it up. I think I'm about halfway through. And
Oh,
speaking of family good, country bad, Andor is pretty remarkable in its like examination of like a rise to fascism or a fascist government takeover, and
yeah.
how analogous it is to right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's also the boredom of evil sometimes, like the guy who's the couple. It's in the middle. I'm not spoiling anything.
Yeah, yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Cyril and the woman who I can't remember her name, and they're both inside, the Imperial Department of Statistics or whatever.
Yeah.
She's a higher up, I think, but they're just so boringly evil and the way they go about it. They're so detached from the horror that they create.
Yeah.
It's
And
it's like yeah,
their main goal is promotion. Like that's it. Like right away. I remember I actually texted a friend of mine um after the very first scene with Cyril, like when he's like in like this giant, this big boring office where it's basically just number crunching, and he brings up an example of like I was able to find through examining these statistics people who had been stealing from us, and he says something like there is room for advancement here, or something like he doesn't care that calling those people out that he found probably got them killed. And he was telling this guy like, yeah, it's boring, but there's room for advancement. Like that's the only thing that seems to matter with that to them. you
yeah.
know Cyril maybe comes around a little bit. Like I am at that point where maybe like there are events
Did you
that
meet his
maybe,
mom yet?
yes.
Okay, so you kind
And
of understand why he's so uh, driven to succeed.
like in that first
I'm gonna.
big scene from I can't remember the character's name, but he's played by Ben Mendelsohn. How he's saying like we have already been doing the work of putting it on state media that Gormans are elitist and rich, and we've already been planting all of these things. We've already
Yeah,
been and then you also see the mom watching state media, and then she echoes the same feelings about Gormans that Ben Mendelsohn had been talking about 5 episodes ago. So in that way, they show like basically Fox News poisoning the minds of.
well, they have. Yeah, they continue to have reporters reporting about what's going
Yep.
on Gorman, and it's completely false. But
Yeah.
they're so funded by the Imperial whatever National Media Corporation, and you see something that's a 180 uh, from what they're saying on microphone. So you witness this thing and you feel bad for the Gormans, and then you see someone admonishing the rebels on Gorman and the disrespectful, riotous humans that are trying to thwart the goodness that our imperial soldiers are trying to put on this country. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's terrible.
It's it's like not super fun to watch in that way. It's like incredibly well done, but also like also feels a little weird that, one of the most prescient pieces of media about the rise of fascism is also like a Star Wars thing. That's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the only thing they would need to do to match our time more accurately is to have those reporters become cabinet ministers or imperial generals. Like
Yep.
the promoting of the Fox celebrity into the government. I don't
Yeah.
think Tony Gilroy covers that in this one.
Have you finished it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then maybe that's season 3. Maybe that's Andor season 3.
The other good one is very political. I don't know if you watch this, Wolf Hall. Have you watched Wolf Hall?
No, but Chris Addison always talked about that book being one of the best books he's ever read. But I still
I
haven't.
I can't imagine reading that book. It's so good. But it's about Thomas Cromwell, who's advisor to King Henry VIII.
Mhm.
And Henry's going slowly mad, and he's he's executing his wife so he can have a male heir, and he's going through all of that. And Cromwell's his closest advisor, and he's trying to give reason to the Mad King, basically. And he survives a really long time by his wits. He's brilliant, and I think it's the second season. It's really incredible, and it's very political. It's all politics, and he's a guy. I think he came from Holland, and he somehow got the favor of King Henry, and he brought him into his court, and he rose with all the lords who have the king's ear, and he's survived Anne Boleyn. Like he tried to save Anne Boleyn, and tried all these. Yeah, it's amazing.
What's it on?
PBS, which you could probably get on your Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah, highly recommended. It's maybe like the best thing. It's so well written and so well acted. Everybody's just like killing it. Mark Rylance and Damian Lewis, and
Oh, it's Rylance is in it?
he plays Cromwell.
Nice.
It's so good. Yeah, it's really wonderful television. So, I mean, our empire is collapsing, but television has never been better. I mean, it's really not. I can't think of a better time at the push of a button.
At the push of a button, you can watch something about empires collapsing while your own empire collapses, so you can ignore that part of it.
Yeah, we're talking, of course, about what, Tim?
Walsh, we've been talking about it the whole time.
Oh, sorry.
We've been talking about Escape from L.A.
Yeah.
I believe. Oh, let me check the year. Do you know the year offhand?
Yeah, it released August 1996.
So August 1996. Escape from L.A., directed by John Carpenter, written by John Carpenter, Deborah Hill, and Kurt Russell. I kind of
Yeah.
loved seeing a 3-credit written by on this.
Yeah, and Kurt and Deborah get a producing credit too. So
I mean, this was
Yeah.
sort of long gestating. When did?
I'm just letting Penny out for
Okay.
the fans. Hold on, Penny. Show your face. There's Penny, just for the fans
Penny.
on YouTube. Penny,
Penny.
look at
Oh.
the camera. There she is.
Oh, who's a good girl?
Yeah, she's the best. All right, come on, go. Get out. Get. All right. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say it was sort of a long gestating sequel. Escape from New York came out in 1981, so we're
Wow.
talking a full 15 years after release.
Yeah.
It does. I mean, this is just like a Wikipedia thing. It sounds like Carpenter in his like eternal grumpiness. It just kind of sounds like he didn't want to do sequels, and it was like Kurt Russell's enthusiasm that really got it off the ground.
Ah.
Yeah, and that sort of tracks just with John Carpenter's general. I don't know the man. I've heard he's lovely, but he has very public grumpiness about him.
Yeah.
that he would rather not do it, and every time he is doing it, he's like, I'd rather not be doing this.
Well, he certainly has a very dystopian view of the world, so I'm not surprised he's grumpy.
Yeah.
You know, he's and Kurt Russell though, aging gracefully. I mean, he looks kind of the same, right? Beautiful hair, fit, still got the guns. I mean, good for him.
Yeah, he's somebody that, like, I mean, I feel like we talked about this a little bit in the Escape from New York episode, how, like, being this former Disney star and then becoming like an action hero isn't necessarily, like, you kind of got to get audiences to buy into that.
Yeah.
And I remember saying this in the Escape from New York episode that, like, right when the first time you see him as Snake Plissken or whatever, it's like, oh my God, this guy absolutely is an action star. And I like that he was able to keep that going. That he
Yeah.
was still, like, 15 years later, he's like, look, I'm still ripped, still got the snake tattoo. Everything about Kurt Russell works. I don't know if we can truly say that everything about the movie works.
Oh, good. I might argue that it does all work. So this is good.
Okay.
Our show is better when we disagree.
Yeah. What do you want to do? Do we want to do Historian Walshy first to set the scene?
Yeah, I got a little bored with 1996. I feel like we've totally sat. It's like OJ.
Yeah.
But I'll just give you a few things. Clinton's president. Bob Dole sweeps the primaries. They arrested the Unabomber, the suspect. Teddy Kaczynski was put into
Teddy.
Teddy.
You guys,
Theodore.
Is that you guys friends?
He is from the south side of Chicago, where I grew up. Weirdly.
What town?
Like kind of Mount Greenwood, south, like near where I grew up, basically. Beverly, south side, yeah.
Is there like a Venn diagram overlap with Mount Greenwood that you think would lead people to become Teddy Kaczynski?
Well, he's probably smarter than most Southsiders, and I put myself in that category. He was kind of a genius, so that messed him up, first of all. But yeah, there might be some, like, I wonder what was in the water, the Lake Michigan water, that made him go, like, nihilist. Or he was anti-technology, and people always quote him now. They are always, like, on the internet. They're talking about how prophetic he was, one thing he did say, which is true, he was saying that technology isn't like independent devices. It's everything that has like Bluetooth or is on the internet is integrated and working for its own purposes. In other words, like, they're not individual, like, oh, that's an automatic lawnmower, or oh, that's a Wi-Fi router. It's like, no, they're all one thing, is his point. Which is kind of where we're going, you know what I mean? With AI and the unification of all technology. So that thing he was afraid of is sort of true.
Okay, so just for the listeners,
I'm not on his side. No, I'm not. Go ahead.
You referred to him as Teddy. You said he was a genius, and you talked about him being prophetic. I'm just saying that, like, I think if you stacked all these things out of context, it might be like, oh,
you could.
Matty Walsh, big fan of the Unabomber.
But you and I can have conversations where subtlety and nuance are allowed. Like, I don't have to worry about being taken out of context with you or this show. I think our fans know where I sit. I don't endorse violence. I don't think killing people, innocent people, is ever correct for your political motivations. So I am not a fan. But Teddy was what his brother was what his brother called him. I mean, you had a brother who lived in the wilderness for a while. You can relate.
Oh yeah.
There's respect for that, trying to get out away and live simply and make a smaller footprint.
For sure.
Yeah,
I don't think you're beating the allegations.
I'm not. I don't agree with the Unabomber. I've never read his manifesto. I only have
skimmed it. You've only skimmed it.
Well, a few poll quotes and a few podcasts who've talked about him, who talked about his. It's really his impact on the nut jobs and the you know, paranoid people that populate the internet. He still is a patron saint of some of what these, conspiracy folks believe. So that's my point.
Um, I think you're right. Before you keep going down the list, I think you're right, and I think this is something that we've talked about before. That like, as we've kind of gone through movies that have presidents in them, I think it's a combination of a few things. That this was like we've covered the mid '90s so much, and I think that is a combination of a few things. One of them being that really does seem like it was like the what would you call it, the salad days, what did the Canaan days of I don't really know what either one of those things means, but it was a high time for political cinema in the mid 90s. Like a lot
Yeah.
of it was being made, people were really interested in it. And it's also, I think, the like a lot of the guests that we've had on are sort of are similar in generation to the two of us. So that was like when we would have been watching a lot of movies. It's sort of like going back. It's like, oh, I watched that one, like Amanda Dobbins, who had seen The American President 4 times in the movie theater when she was like 11 or 12.
Yeah.
It's like that overlap of not only were there a lot of movies with presidents and vice presidents in them, but also the people that we've had on are specifically attracted to that period of time.
Yeah. And it was the heyday, just people say, of like American capitalism. Like we had the evil empire Russia had collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
So our only duty now was to spend as much money and invest in this new thing called the internet. Like
Mm-hmm.
up until 9/11, we didn't have that boogeyman as a country.
Oh yeah.
We didn't have like money to like throw at communism and the war in Vietnam anymore, or Korea, or the bomb that Russia had. We weren't obsessed with the boogeyman that was Russia. Once that fell, we were sort of our own enemy for a while.
Yeah.
And so that's an interesting moment that a lot of these movies, like you said, we were there to watch movies, and they weren't on demand yet, so we had to go back to the theater.
It is funny to think about, like, we didn't have an enemy, so we had to be our own enemy. It kind of, man, it fucking weirdly feels like that right now, too.
I know we are in some weird decline. I hope I don't know.
I mean, yeah.
I wish I knew more about politics. Let's just leave it there.
Yeah, it's a good thing. You think we would take the opportunity hosting a show that is sort of very, somewhat involved with politics to learn more? But
Yeah.
most of the time, I have found just for, I'm doing the thing that they probably cover at some point in Andor of like, I'm just turning it off. I feel like I'm dialed in enough, but I can't do the thing that I was doing 10 years ago. Like I'm not on Twitter anymore, but like
No.
there is that thing of like every morning 10 years ago you wake up and turn on the bad news machine,
Yeah.
and it's bad for mental health, and so trying to find the balance of mental health versus staying informed, figuring out how you can help, that's challenging right now.
Yeah. And you used to engage on Twitter. I would see you go to battle with people. You were
Yeah.
really,
And you know what didn't solve or help anything?
yeah.
That.
Yeah, that's the problem. You're right.
Yeah.
Also in '96, I just want to say there were two significant jet crashes. Like people worry that, oh, maybe airline crashes are worse now. I think they were worse back then. We had one in the Everglades, a Value Jet. Never fly in an airline called Value Jet, right? Even if Travago gets you a $99 one way,
Don't
you're
do
not
it.
right. Common
wouldn't.
sense. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Or like, what's the other one? Horizon or something? That was a bad one. I don't know if they're still around. I hope nobody who listens to our show works for Horizon Air.
Sorry, I'm getting a message in the comments that the CEO of Horizon Airlines is,
A fan?
well, he's a fan. He's also threatening litigation.
Oh,
So, well, okay.
I get. Yeah, you're not implicated. This is my opinion, not the show. So I'll give you some cover here, Tim. This is my personal opinion. And then also, There was a 747 airliner crashed off of it in the Atlantic, off of Long Island, and it was, I think I remember because I was living in New York at the time. 230 people died.
Really?
Yeah, but they didn't give the airline on that one. That's a good publicist for whatever airline that is. Do you know what I mean? Let's just say the serial number, but not the airline. Penny, in or out? Come on. We talk about a mission on Andor, but it happens in America, Tim. The Wikipedia for this year doesn't mention the airline for that crash.
You are right. Like, good job by the publicists. Do you remember, that reminds me of, like, do you remember when Trump's taxes ultimately got released? Somebody had found them, I don't know how. And the guy who did his taxes was like, yeah, I did those. So if you want to get the same deal I got for him, which was basically that he paid zero fucking taxes even though he was a billionaire. He was like, yeah, if you want that deal, come see me. It's like the word, you know what I mean? Like, that publicist is like, oh yeah, if you're a corporation and you do something that kills a bunch of people and you don't want to get in trouble for it, or you want it to, like, not have that information not be out there, come see me. It's like the worst. There is, man, that's the fucking one of the problems, is that there is a world where if you don't have morality, you can really do well. You can make a lot of money.
Yeah, you can gain a lot of power and you can make a lot of money. That is absolutely true. You can even print your own crypto coin and give people access to the White House.
Yep.
If you don't care.
If you don't, God, that one is really that. And like, before we go on to, but don't want to digress too much, but there is that thing where, I don't know. I guess this is just me personally. I'll never understand it. Like when Columbia, or like the law firms that signed on early to try to like avoid like the executive orders, or Columbia saying like, okay, we're going to comply with XYZ because then they'll leave us alone. It's these are, we could assume, intelligent people running these places. But somehow they haven't figured out that, like, there is one simple truth to all this, is that if you kowtow to him at all, it will never end there. He will keep asking you for more and more and more. And it'll never be enough. You will always be, and then, so you won't win there. But if you just stand up to him, like in that way of like all bullies, if you just punch back, he'll immediately fold. And I'm just saying this, like, state of Maine, the governor from the state of Maine was like, when it came to, threatening federal funding, because there were, I think, 2 trans athletes in the entire state of Maine.
Yeah.
He was like, I'll see you in court. And then there's one in court and he hasn't brought it up. You know what I mean? Like, you push back even slightly and he'll fold. And so that's like one of the most stunning. Anyway, so it just, like, all the people that bought, $20 million in Trump coins to go to that dinner, they got served, I don't know if you saw pictures, just a real shitty dinner, like a bad, like, imagine like a bad wedding. Of course. And then he like made a 5-minute speech and left. So you don't even get what you want. You are openly being like, I want to like participate in this corruption.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get something out of it. And you're just another person that got scammed by him. You're just another person that got scammed. And it's, I don't know, it's wild. We don't have to digress too much just because it's all out there. It's all bad. Country bad. Family good, country bad.
Well, yes, I agree with that. And I know that a lot of those people who bought the crypto were foreign nationals, and they're getting around the laws or the Justice Department's role in making sure nobody has influence over our government. So that's
but it feels even now like the Justice Department is like, yeah, you should have some influence over him. That's cool.
Yeah,
we would love that.
I did want to say when we were on the subject of publicists, in Chicago in the late 80s, early 90s. I don't know if you were there yet, but there was a terrible unsolved murder at a Brown's Chicken,
Okay.
one of those franchise chicken places that were in the Midwest, certainly Chicago. They were all over. And these poor people were murdered after hours, and they never solved it. And for a while, I think eventually they did. And we did a sketch at my theater where it was the Brown's Chicken publicist talking to the media after the event had happened, after the crime had happened, and they were talking to the media, and they just wanted to point out that it's a horrible thing that happened, but in all these stories that we keep reading about, we're being called Brown's Chicken, and we had a relaunch recently, and it's Brown's Chicken and Pasta. And so we just want to make sure people know that we've changed our name and we offer more than chicken. And yes, the murder's terrible. But it's Brown's Chicken. The name of our restaurants are Brown's Chicken and Pasta. Are there any questions? And it was so terrible, but it was funny to us.
But that is the thing. Like, that is the thing about publicists or PR people just being like, how are we going to spin this? And
Yeah.
you know, we spent all
Yes.
this money on the rebrand, and now we're going to be like the Murder Chicken House. Like, well, how do we change the narrative here? Don't forget
Yeah.
about our pasta.
Anyways,
I will say, while we're talking about, because obviously we've been talking about Escape from LA this entire
Yeah.
time. I will say it worked better for me. I had rewatched it a couple years ago. I think me and my friends were so stoked to go see this in the theater when it came out. And I think we left a little not as enthused. And I watched it again a couple years ago because I was on a little Carpenter run. And then watching it again last night, it definitely worked better for me last night than it did a couple years ago. So I'm not full anti. There are so many things about Carpenter that I love that are present in this.
oh yeah,
That it can't be. It's not going to be like a 0 out of 5 stars. It's not even.
yeah.
But tell me what about it really worked for you? Like, when you say, like, I've got a contrary opinion, what comes to mind?
Well, the one thing I love is that a lot of the sort of virtual reality stuff was kind of cool. That was a TWA publicist who kept the name off. I just wanted to look that up.
Okay.
TWA had a good publicist back then. They kept the name off of the story. So I just want to say that.
Until now.
Until now.
Oh, hold on. I'm seeing in the chat we're being threatened by the now defunct airline TWA. Like an old dad joke. This is something my dad used to say, is that it was called Terrorists Welcome Aboard.
Oh my God.
You know how dads always have like the funny alternate name for the anagram or whatever?
That's good. No, we both agree Kurt Russell keeping it tight. He's still a good, did you ever see Big Trouble in Little China?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. He's great. He's a great, that brand, whatever he is, Harrison Fordism comes through always. He's great. And I like that the virtual reality thing that he could only use once, he kept it in his pocket till the very end.
Yeah.
That was a nice, we were forgetting about that as viewers. I thought that was nice structure. I love that right before he gets into the sort of Tron-like submarine, he tries to shoot the 3 people, and they're like, that's what Stacy Keach is like, that's why we put blanks in their snake. I like that there's 2 S's in Pliskin. I just didn't know that. They really made a point of spelling his name out in this one. I would think Pliskin would have 1 S, but it's 2.
Well, I think this is only from my experience as a Simons and not a Simmons that I believe the double consonant. Penny's the star today.
I know. People are getting a window in how this dog rules. Come on. She's doing whatever she wants. She's going in, she's going out. It's because people come by like the kids come by and she wants to see the kids, and now she's back.
My experience as a Simons and not a Simmons, I believe that it is the double consonant that changes the vowel before it. So if it was one S, I believe it would be Pliskin.
Oh.
So I believe the double S, and like, look, I was not a great student, so this could be incorrect. But I believe that Simons is pronounced that way because of the single M, whereas if it was two M's, it would be Simmons.
So you're Simons
Mhm.
because there's not a double M.
Yes.
And so Pliskin is Pliskin
rather than
Plip. If it was one S, he'd be Pliskin, Snake Pliskin.
I feel like this is one of those things that held up production of this movie for 15 years because they were like, guys, we haven't even gotten that sorted out. How are we shooting in 3 weeks if we don't even have this figured out?
Don't file for the tax credits. We need to solve this first.
Like, guys, it feels like you could have this solved by later on today and we can still just apply for these tax credits. No?
Nobody leaves the room. Pardon my language, but you shut up. You're not helping. And this is 1996, and we can still talk to coworkers like that.
I think
I'm going to throw a baked potato at your head, and there's not a thing you're going to do about it.
In fact,
said John Carpenter.
Said John Carpenter to Deborah Hill.
Maybe he liked Deborah. He probably didn't throw it at Deborah.
No, he probably didn't throw it at Deborah. I feel like maybe he and Deborah, I'm going to have to do, I feel like they dated or were married or like, I feel like they worked together so much. Look, I could just be completely making that up.
Well, this is perfect because this is a show where we don't do any background research. My speculation is maybe, Snake and Deborah had something going on when Goldie and Snake weren't working out.
Wow.
Because I think they were kind of open. Like, they never got married, those two, They weren't traditional couple. They weren't a traditional couple.
So you're thinking that there was like an ethically non-monogamous thing that led to Snake Plissken, not Kurt Russell, Snake Plissken. So just when he's in character.
Well, when you're in production, you're just that guy. You know what I mean? Like Daniel Day-Lewis is, he's in deep. And so maybe when Snake was being Snake, I don't know, him and Deborah, or John and Deborah, or Deborah and nobody. Like, she's her own person. Maybe she's like,
oh yeah, she doesn't need to be defined by her relationship to Snake Plissken or John Carpenter. Like, yeah, she was an incredibly successful producer.
Yeah, that's a fast track to blowing up your career by having an affair with somebody you're working with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that really complicates. Unless you can pull it off. Obviously,
I mean, you barely survived the fallout from having the affair with Gary Cole. That really tore apart the set.
Well, he was not emotionally mature, which is what I did not see coming. He acted like a high schooler when we broke up, and I thought he knew all along it was just fun.
Yeah.
And we were going back. I never left my wife. I'm like, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah. We were in Baltimore one time, and I saw him, and he was like going into a ring store. I never told you that at the time, but
a jewelry store.
A jewelry store. Like, he was getting sized up for rings, and he was sizing you up. He kept talking to the props people. They'd be like, "What size?" Like when you were engaged to Kathy and Jimmy, he was like, "You guys had to fit him for rings, right? What was the size?"
What size do you think Walsh is? What size do you think?
Matt Walsh?
He's about medium build. He's 6 foot. Medium build. What would that be a ring number on his index? Just curious.
So we had an odd double feature last night in that, and I think it also kind of affected my viewing of Escape from LA that we watched. The kids wanted to watch V for Vendetta. So we had, or at least I had, these 2 in a row dystopian political movies about, failed governments and theocracies, religious theocracies. And one thing that right away, I think one like the best for me, this movie, like the first 15 minutes are as good as any other Carpenter movie in that the setup is perfect.
Yeah.
It finds a way to be like, okay, New York was a prison and they had these walls. And so like how are we going to do Escape from LA? Okay, so giant earthquake. We've got the GM building downtown collapsing. So that's how we separate LA from the rest of the country. And then in that way of like John Carpenter being, I guess, the grumpy kind of, pessimist that he is, did kind of see this coming, that like people were being deported for immorality. Um, uh, hold on. Yeah, so it was said like the United States ravaged by crime and immorality is what I thought was interesting there. That like they were like the crimes that these people had committed where they were being deported really didn't have a lot to do with crimes. It just came down to you were a Muslim. You
Right, the gal he meets in the movie
Yeah,
was a Muslim in South Dakota, and that was her crime.
and that was her crime.
And the
And like
president now is a lifetime appointment. That guy,
yep.
he's the religious nut you see early on in like some of the the
Yeah.
pre-roll stuff, and then you realize like, oh wait, that guy became president.
Yeah, so he had, and I think it was because he kept saying that like God was going to have, his divine retribution, and then the earthquake happened, so people thought that he was people were like, oh, he knew, and so then he turned that into a lifetime appointment.
Yeah,
And there is also the like John Carpenter, like I don't know, like this is funny, but when Snake is walking through and they're like, if you don't want to be deported, you can opt for confession, be absolved of your sins by a priest and straight to electrocution. And as
yeah,
he's walking in, there are just two people that are being like like the electric chair. I know it sounds weird to say that's really funny, but it is really funny that he is that pessimistic. And it was like, yeah, this would happen. Like this is how this would go. And isn't that kind of funny? So I think all of the stuff up until when he like gets in the submarine, it kind of falls apart once he gets into LA. Not that it isn't enjoyable, but I would just say sort of like as a movie, as a story, it falls apart a little bit. But that first 15 minutes, I think, are fucking immaculate.
yeah. It's great. I enjoy all that setup. I agree, and the CGI isn't bad for 1996. Like the
Yeah.
crumbling highways and the crumbling downtown buildings and the virtual reality stuff. Like I was sort of applauding like the early days of that stuff, and I thought they did a pretty good job with that.
Yeah. And also then just like, John Carpenter liking practical effects. And we've talked about this before, like going back through some of these movies and seeing like, oh, they just got that many extras together. Like even in that earthquake scene, he was just smashing real cars together,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like there was just like a pickup truck, an actual pickup truck smashing into another car, and they put cameras on it. And I love
Do you
that.
think they used the Beverly Hills Hotel? Remember they
That
show Cuervo Jones arriving in an ambulance in the middle of the story when
Yeah.
Snake's staking him out.
That
Do you
I
think
mean,
that's the real Beverly Hills
I
Hotel?
feel like that might have been a matte painting.
Okay.
Maybe so, but I mean, they definitely used the real Coliseum.
Oh, the Rose Bowl.
Was that the Rose Bowl?
I thought that was the Rose Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. Unless it's the Col. You know what? I don't know.
I
It might
think
be the Coliseum.
I think
You're
it
right.
might be the Coliseum.
You're right.
And the one of the notes that I made on that one was that, like, number one, I love it when a movie uses real LA locations.
Yeah.
They didn't shoot South Africa for LA and
No.
get so like they're in the Coliseum. But like looking at the Coliseum in that scene, like he's walking out and he's about to do the basketball thing, I was like, man, it must have sucked to be the PAs that had to clean up the Coliseum. Because they so clearly just like littered trash all over it to make it look shitty.
Yeah. I had that sensation when I watched the Beverly Hotel and thought it was real. Because I'm like,
Hmm.
ugh, they really we're going to be a pain in the ass about cleaning that place up, because the hotel's like, okay, now you're done. Pick that up. Pick that up. Come here. Pick that up. That wasn't here before.
That wasn't here before. You scratched that paint. You're going to repaint that.
You're going to pressure wash all the pavement, all the grit, pressure wash. Yeah. No, you're not done. Come here.
You're not done. We have 15 Saudi princes coming here this weekend.
Yeah.
And they're not going to enjoy seeing the detritus from your kind of B movie.
Well, but they didn't let him. You think it was a matte painting?
I think it might have been a matte painting.
Because my mind went to, this is how I watched it. My mind was like, wow, I feel like that was like an interim owner who wasn't making any money. It's like, yeah, we'll take the location fee. Come on, like, do you know what I mean? Like, it was like a down period for that place, but probably not. It was probably a matte painting.
There is also that thing of like, this was also probably back. I don't know if this is the case now, where even if your hotel was being portrayed, and this does go into a separate thought about like the Beverly Hills Hotel in that scene, even if your hotel is being portrayed as a place where all these people with terrible plastic surgery have to keep harvesting bodies, in order to keep themselves alive. They're like these mutants. They're like plastic surgery mutants. That your hotel being used in a movie, even if it's to a bad end, still had like some cachet to it. It was like, oh, you remember us. Yeah. You remember us from Escape from LA, right? This was the hotel that was in that movie. Whereas I don't think that hotels like that are as interested in the like promotion. There she is. There's the star of the day.
Well, I didn't want her to let her out. I'm trying to force her to just chill. She wants to go out again, so I'm just going to hold her for a little bit.
So, like, do you know what I mean? Like, whatever. Hold on, I gotta mute that. So, like, whatever promotion you would have got from being in a movie, it doesn't really feel like that's there anymore. Like, I doubt the Beverly Hills Hotel would even lend their logo to them now.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. But there's a world where maybe that was the hotel, but it probably wasn't. But I agree. Like, there was a time, even if the movie was, like, having a weird plastic surgery morgue, we're like, yeah, you can use it. It's still Hollywood.
The point that I was going to say that this led into is I think one of the things that the reason I would say, like, you can say, like, it might be a little bit too harsh, but that, like, the movie kind of falls apart a little bit once they land in LA.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like they're like kind of running through things too fast. And I think that Beverly Hills Hotel plastic surgery mutant thing is a good example of like what an incredible setup of like John Carpenter being like, what are the things you know about LA and how are we going to spin it to make it interesting? That choice is incredible. Beverly Hills Hotel, what did they call it? The Surgeon General of Beverly Hills is the Bruce Campbell character. They're there, but like the threat is dispatched almost immediately. You know what I mean? We spend like 3 minutes there at most. So we never really like get to live in that. And I just felt like I wanted to spend more time there. I wanted to be more scared by that. I wanted it to be harder to get out. But it's just kind of like, he like cuts the ropes, grabs the guy, and he's like, we're getting out of here. And then they're out of there, and then they're on to like the Korean dragons. And then the Korean dragons are done pretty quickly. And then they're on to the next thing. And then they're on to the next thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. There's no sense of geography to like the journey. And far be it for me to second guess John Carpenter and Deborah and Kurt for writing ideas. But I wonder if it'd be better served if the actual disease he had was real and that the effects of it were more compounding and challenging to Kurt and Snake as the journey went on. Because ultimately they go, ha, we tricked you. It's a basic flu. You didn't have this COVID-like Ebola thing that we scared you into thinking. And also because the hurdle, like you said, everything's kind of dispatched easily. He gets a cough, but he doesn't have like the ticking clock, and we check the wristwatch a lot to let us know like in 2 minutes he's going to be dead or whatever. But it didn't really affect our investment in the story somehow. So yeah, that's a problem. I wanted to ask you though, did you get kind of a little sneaker for the mini laser disc that goes inside the virtual reality calculator? Because you like hard media, and I'm like, oh, I bet Tim's like wishing that was real and he could have a tiny library for tiny laser discs. Was that exciting?
Look, it was exciting to me, and I hate that it was. I really did not. I don't appreciate being called out in this way. But I mean, like when Steve Buscemi he's like, hey, do you have any red nail polish? And he like puts the little dot on it, and he's like, I'm gonna do a little Texas switch with this. I was like, man, you can't just be putting nail polish on your discs.
Yeah.
I was like, that's not proper care.
And what side? What side are you putting that on, Steve Buscemi? Because it won't read if you're doing it wrong.
And also, it's going to get all spun up. It's going to gum up the works inside.
Yeah.
I'm going to send an email to Deborah and Kurt and John later on today, just to be like, hey, guys.
And that's Eddie the Map to the Stars guy, right? That's his name?
Yeah. Eddie Map to the Stars. Who, honestly, this was also, I mean, not that I'm ever not in a Steve Buscemi phase. I've publicly stated this so many times. I think he might be my favorite actor to ever live. Like, or he's up there. I just love everything he does. And so this was really like solidly like Steve Buscemi appearing in this movie. Me and my friends, like we might as well like had like a big Steve Buscemi face like that they hold up like at college basketball games. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Eddie Maps to the Stars is such a great character. But again, he like, you know, he's like working for them, and then he flips back, and then he flips back again, and then he falls off the helicopter. It's never really all tied up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think like what I did like one, I like the fast talking salesman character for Steve Buscemi. I haven't seen him do that. Like he's always quirky and interesting, but I hadn't seen like the fast talking, like shady wheeler dealer character in the library of Steve Buscemi roles. Cause like Nucky Thompson is crooked, but he's much more methodical, and, you know, in Boardwalk, he's just smarter and subtler. This guy was like a mile a minute and filling every moment of silence with something, you know.
And he's Cuervo's agent, which I also loved.
Yeah. He's Cuervo's agent. He had a nice car, and I liked a little bit. There's kind of a nod to like, Grease, the movie, when they're driving down in the river, the concrete river with the car with the flames. And then it kind of feels like a nod to the Warriors, because they're going through like the Korean Dragons territory, and now we're going through like, I forget all the gangs. So I was kind of like enjoying that for whatever reason. Like, oh, that's not a bad game to play. Like, what's the next neighborhood that's run by like a unique gang, let's say? Like Hershey, who used to be a man named Crooked Mike or something,
Chainsaw Mike,
something like that. Yeah. She had her own gang, but I forget what they were called. Were they dragons, or that was the Korean Dragons? The Korean Dragons were on the 101 with all the cars that broke down, and that's where the gal who was Muslim got shot. Yeah, right away. That was kind of an abrupt ending, which is surprising. You didn't see that coming.
No, you didn't see that coming, and it makes sense. Like thinking back to Escape from New York, there's like the chock full of nuts girl who is like just immediately like gets sucked into the floor by those people that live underground. Yes, you think she's going to be a big part of it. You're like, oh, this is like the attractive heroine, and she gets sucked into. So maybe they were thinking like, oh, it's going to be like that. To that actress's credit,
you know what her credit in the movie is chock full of Muslim. Too soon? Sorry.
Hey everybody, this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. You know, mental health is really important, and it's a practice. You have to be able to continually do it to see results. It's not a one and done type thing. And you know what really helps a practice is convenience. And BetterHelp is really convenient because I did it. I started during COVID. Everybody was feeling a little depressed, a little blue. And it was so easy to virtually Zoom and talk about your problems, and you didn't have to drive anywhere. And I met really talented, kind, concerned counselors who listened, sometimes my mundane stuff, sometimes my real stuff. And it was really helpful, and it, through practice, made me feel a lot better. So if you have any issues in your life and you want to explore therapy, I highly recommend BetterHelp. They were good for me. So just remember this. So we're all better with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Veep to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Veep.
It might be, I mean, it feels like, again, maybe they just needed to take a second look at the script. Like, yeah, they were really focused on the two S's in Pliskin, but I feel like maybe they were like, somebody should have raised their hand and been like, this character's name is chock full of Muslim. Guys, I think that's maybe like not a good enough callback. Like, are people really going to remember chock full of nuts girl? And then also, this feels like this is 1996. I guess it's pre-2001, so they're not like touching the third rail with that. No, it works. It works.
Yeah, but I also think like that's maybe why I was like happy to like take a positive stance on this film versus your sort of negative stance, which is like it's kind of ahead of the curve on a lot of this stuff. Like the fact that like except for the proliferation of open flames, like it looks like LA now. A lot of those like encampments and like open barter towns that are happening, like it's kind of ahead of it.
Yeah.
Except for the open, you're gonna get in trouble for having open flames, which not in this universe you do, but in our universe currently you can't have an open flame like that.
Yeah, I do. I will say the woman who played the South Dakota Muslim woman, the moment where she was like, my boyfriend and I just broke up and I can make you feel good. I want to shout out that moment. I really liked that. There was like a lot of sadness in there.
Yeah.
That really came through, and I really enjoyed that moment. I thought she played that moment really well, and I think maybe in the hands of somebody else, or somebody that's just like, whatever, this is like Escape from LA, I'm not going to put that much thought into it. I thought she found a different level to that scene that I really enjoyed. And so like shout out to her.
It was great. I agree with you. And it was beyond sexual. There was like real human connection she was longing for.
Yeah.
And that's what came across in that scene. So I agree with you. It was like a nice little moment, for sure. I also like, it's a lot of post-apocalyptic media or shows are common now, obviously, right? Like the zeitgeist, like The Last of Us, which I'm watching, is so hard to watch because it's so bleak. But like, again, I guess I like this movie because this was made in 96 and it's kind of ahead of The Last of Us by 30 years. Like,
yeah,
it's interesting. I guess I find that interesting is like, oh wow, here's like a precursor to what's really popular now, these post-apocalyptic worlds. This is a guy doing it 30 years ago and doing it pretty well. So I guess I was like on board for that reason too.
I think there is something that's kind of wild about John Carpenter, and in his cynicism is like an A-level thinker who then kind of makes B movies, if that makes sense. Like, his theories are all kind of spot on. The thought behind them, like the way that he examines human nature through these post-apocalyptic things, these post-apocalyptic stories, all of his thoughts on that are really top level. I just also kind of love that he presents them to you in this sort of like entertaining B-movie way of like people's heads getting cut off and the guy, like the blood sport part of it that I'm sure we talked about in Escape from New York. Like they have that boxing match like the to
Yeah.
the death boxing match. John Carpenter understands like what people want from entertainment. Like when they're doing the basketball thing, like score 10 points, 10-second shot clock, nobody's ever survived. He knows that like the audience wants violence. They want death. They want that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in this, I think he knows it as a filmmaker, and he also knows that the audience would want that kind of death in this post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah, he had the hedge clippers, the big dude,
Yeah.
and because there was a shot clock violation.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a hell of a half court shot that Snake makes at the end of the. He has to score 10 points in 10 consecutive, passes down the court. 5. He has to make 5 buckets on a full length court
Yeah.
in 50 seconds,
And he does the right.
alternating the ends. Yeah.
He's Tim Duncan at the beginning. He's like doing Old Faithful. He's going right off the backboard. He's not trying to kiss it over the front of the rim. He's going right off the back.
Yep. He starts with layups, and then he gets a little rush, and then he's going to like mid-range jumpers.
Yep.
And then he's going, and there's no 3-point shot clock.
Which I do appreciate.
Cuervo Jones doesn't care about that rule. He's like, that's not real basketball.
I appreciate Cuervo for that. Like, he likes the old school game. He wants ball movement. He doesn't want this isolation bullshit.
Yeah.
He wants you to work together as a team.
And that makes the half court shot even more incredible, because even the hoods who recklessly. So if you do an execution, Tim, you've seen executions in movies,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always a single file of men. And
Yeah.
then parallel to them is 1 or 2 or 3 victims.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, ready, aim, fire. And it's into a wall that would absorb the bullets.
Yep. I know exactly what you're going to say.
Now, if you're doing an open cage basketball execution, you can't have 360 coverage for
No.
that execution. It just feels dangerous.
It does.
Even for Cuervo Jones, quite honestly, like he could catch a stray.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not a great idea.
No.
It looks cool.
Yeah.
It looks amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
they are almost, it's almost as if they have intentionally lined up to make sure that there is another one of their teammates behind the person they're executing. Like, we want to make this
across court. Yeah. It's just, that was like, I wanted to like write a note to Cuervo and say, you guys have to rehearse this, because this is not efficient use of bullets and men. It's just not going to go well.
And maybe he doesn't care. I mean, I was going to say that like you probably have like a limited pool of employees to pull from, but honestly, they're probably throwing new people in there every day. He probably views them as pretty expendable.
Yeah, and it might be a little bit of decision fatigue. Like, he can't focus on everything. He's got to delegate at some point.
One of the things that I think is where John Carpenter's humor really comes out is that, and I feel like this is almost a joke that would have been in Big Trouble in Little China, which I weirdly did just rewatch maybe like a month ago.
Oh.
And it's so good. And of course, like when I was a kid, I never really got the thing that they were going for. That it's kind of like a white savior movie where the white guy does no saving and has no idea what's happening at all times. He's constantly like, he'll look at people and be like, follow me, and then go to his sidekick and be like, where do we go? Like, that is like the whole movie. He is constantly fucking up, but fucking up so confidently. He's like John Wayne being like, I know everything, except he knows jack shit. There is a joke in here where they're talking about, I think it's when he's talking to Hershey, that he's like, yeah, you got run out of there with Texas Mike O'Shea. So it's Mike O'Shea, the most fucking Irish name possible, but he's from Texas. Like, Texas Mike O'Shea, I feel like has to be an intentional John Carpenter joke that he would just think is funny. I wrote that one down because it really stuck out to me.
And they were in Jersey, right? I think, or no, Cleveland.
Yeah.
Cleveland is where the detention center was that Snake escaped from.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, like, so now I'm like on your side, like the challenge with some of this feeling or petering out, like you said, once we got the apocalyptic, the rules of the apocalyptic world in the beginning were so fun to understand and watch. Like Utopia kidnapping the plane or hijacking the plane and then taking the box. She doesn't get to, I mean, and this might be a hot take. Maybe Carpenter doesn't write well for women
Uh-huh.
because she doesn't get to have much agency over the story. Once she initiates, she's the inciting incident, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And she doesn't get to do much. She becomes like sort of a buddy slash servant to Cuervo. What do you think that relationship is between Cuervo and Utopia?
Well, I think like, they have like that 5-second clip of Cuervo Jones where they're like, right when they're explaining what's happening, they're like, this is how she got radicalized because she spent all this time in the VR world.
Right.
Which also, again, John Carpenter being a person who's predicting shit 30 years at a time. Like, he's like,
screens.
Yeah, like, after the death of someone, that she retreated to VR and spent, days at a time in there. And so there's that. I remember I did want to point out she was wearing a True Love Waits pin when she was hijacking the plane, which I thought was really funny.
Oh.
But in that like 5-second clip of Cuervo Jones, that they said like, this is all we have. It's like him releasing a dove, and it's like, like this sort of Technicolor piece, like hippie piece thing that he's in, releasing a dove that they're playing over and over again. So I get the sense that what they're trying to say is that she was manipulated by him, that he presented himself as this peaceful, I'm a rebellion leader, but it's because I want peace.
Yeah.
And when she got there, he was like, yeah, I was using you. I want power. And so she became secondary. She could be pushed to the side. That's what I thought they were going for. But no, she really didn't have a lot of agency, nor really a lot to do with the story after that.
So do you think she's sort of like, I don't know, like Patty Hearst or whatever? Like, is she on board with his revolution? Like how he's organizing Cuba and Uganda to take Florida, and him and the other Los Angeles Island residents are going to take the West Coast, and that's his revolution? Like, do you think, or is she, like, why doesn't she just cut out?
I think that's a good question. I think probably it's that she did agree with his presenting of the revolution, which is why she did it.
Yep.
But then when she gets there, she probably finds herself pretty powerless to change anything. And then she's like, well, what am I going to do? Like, this guy is abusive to me, but where am I going to go? There is no safe place to go. She does try to escape with Snake. At one point.
Yeah.
But then then she realizes that Snake was told to kill her. She has that realization of being like, oh, even Snake isn't safe because my dad told him that it was okay to kill me.
Yeah. Again, I'm not second guessing Carpenter, Hill, Russell on the writing, but I wonder if her addiction to VR should have played out in the Los Angeles Island world, because like if she's a mess, like she had this dream and she gets attached to Che Guevara essentially, and then she realizes like, oh, they don't want me. I'm just like, I'm a pawn. I have zero power in this world. Wouldn't she fall back on her addiction and just like go back into the virtual world?
I mean, I think that's yes. I mean, I think that's one of the things that like not bums me out, but like I'm such a huge fan of Escape from New York. It just kind of feels like a lot of the stuff in here is like a little half baked.
Yeah.
Yeah. like the big stuff works. Obviously, like everything with Snake Plissken works,
Yeah.
but just some of the other stuff is a little like, yeah, we had an idea and it didn't really work, but we just shot it and it ended up in there.
And I did like, so it is sort of that like kitchen sink. Let's just give them everything and see what works.
Mm-hmm.
I did like the sort of Tim Burton Batman ending where they're all on hang gliders in a soundstage shooting guns and circling and never getting hit. Like that felt very much like Tim Burton's take on all the Batman movies. Like we'll go inside a stage. It's a little fake, but you just sort of buy it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it is like one of those things that on paper seems like it's probably going to be like really cool and badass. And then in execution, it's like, yeah, this seems a little bit, it doesn't work as well. And also that was the Happy Kingdom by the Sea. They had like they had a little bit of it. They were like, oh yeah, it changed owners a bunch of times. It's just Disneyland. And it changed owners a bunch of times. And Steve Buscemi has a joke that I think would have played really well at the time, which was the thing in Paris killed them. Because I think Disney had just opened Disneyland Paris.
Yes. But they never said Disney, did they?
No. I don't think they could have. They would have been sued into oblivion. We're probably going to, I'm looking at the chat. Yeah, we are being sued by Disney for even mentioning it here.
Well, there's a great, the publicity machine at Disney runs the show. Like, you can't mention them.
No.
Yeah, in your fiction. You can call it the Happy Kingdom, and you can mention Paris, but you cannot call it Disney. They even had Universal Studios in some moment. I think maybe they had a piece of the movie.
They're like, when he's like in the submarine.
Yes. That's right.
Yeah, you see him go by. He goes by City Hall. He goes by Universal Studios. So apparently, that's what we're learning is that Disney had the juice. Universal Studios didn't have the juice.
And also, they didn't have the lawyers or the publicity machine. Mm-hmm. Also, the EMP of it all, I like that. That was, again, ahead of it. Like, that is a real thing now where, like, you take out people's electromagnetic devices, you can win the war. And so I like the science fiction that Carpenter and crew put into this story, which is like, we're going to take out all your power and all your electricity devices.
Yeah.
Again, that's that's how I'm rooting for the story.
And that is also like one of the things that really does work is that like Pliskin is never going to be, he's never going to fight for a country. He's never going to fight for a flag. Or I mean, like he was in the military previously, but is so cynical now that he's like, yeah, like in the first movie, he tears up that tape that would have helped the peace negotiations or whatever. And this one, he's just like, fuck you. I'm going to turn off the whole world. And what's the last line? It's again.
Well, this is, go ahead.
He says, welcome to the human race. Like it cuts to black and it says, welcome to the human race. And it's like, I don't, it's like a little bit of a half-baked idea.
So this is where it does get a little long and I might have got a little sleepy because I barely remember the ending, which is the flaming helicopter. They leave Buscemi. They cut the rope that was holding him down.
Yep.
Buscemi is a hero, I guess. And then they fly away in a flaming helicopter because he gets hit by Cuervo Jones's rocket launcher. Everybody in the back seat dies.
Yes.
But in the front seat, we have Utopia,
and
Snake.
And it was actually Hershey that shoots the rope to let them go, but it was Steve Buscemi who shoots Cuervo.
Got it.
Yeah.
You're right. So Hershey is a real hero. Yeah. They're flying away. Flaming helicopter somehow makes it across the water to the mainland of America, where the president and Stacy Keach are waiting, and they crash it in a field beyond where they are. So they drive out. The military drives out with the president and Stacy Keach. Snake tells Utopia, take the real black box, or what is it?
It's it's like the little recorder thing that controls the satellites. He sneaks it into her pocket.
Okay.
So
And that's the thing that was in the black box, right?
yes.
Okay, so it was
he
in the
sneaks
black
it
box,
into
yeah.
her pocket, but it's a ruse. So like, because Stacy Keach is like, there's no way the one that Snake has is the real one. Check her pockets. They pull that one out. He's like, you didn't think we'd figured you out or whatever, and hands the one from Utopia's pocket to the president.
And then tell me what happens from here on out. This is where I get fuzzy.
Okay, so then the president does like a does a what do you call it, like a press conference. They like, again, in this world,
In the moment, right? They set up a stage.
they set up
They get the media there.
They get the media there, and then he says to all of those people thinking about invading us, like, this is what'll happen. And he puts in the country code and he presses the button, and it's,
And what's he going to blow up when he pushes in that code? What is he intended? L.A.?
No,
L.A.
Cuba.
Island?
Cuba.
Cuba. He's going to blow up
He's
Cuba.
attacking. Cuba is attacking off the coast of Miami.
Got it.
But then when he presses play, it's the Eddie Map to the Stars
Got it.
tour.
I remember that. That was funny.
And then they go to shoot Snake, and he's using the hologram, and they're like, he's within a half a mile or whatever. And at that point, he hits the world code 666 and executes it and shuts off everything. Shuts off.
And
the
Snake
entire-
is in. Where is Snake when we physically last see him? Is he in a forest somewhere?
Yeah, he's in the forest.
And he's just hitting 666, the
And
code?
then he hits the button, the whole world goes dark, and then it cuts to black, and he says, "Welcome to the human race."
And that means that he had all those satellites take out worldwide every electromagnetic thing.
Yeah. And in the process, it saves Utopia because they put her in the electric chair, and they're about to execute her.
And is the electric chair also set up near the press conference, or do they rush her back underneath the station where we first meet Snake?
I think they may have rushed her back to the station.
Okay.
But again, just
So
like the wristwatch with
Yeah,
all the
got it.
timing, it doesn't exactly make sense. Like, they're really like, they get to the Queen Mary. They get to the Queen Mary really
Queen
fast.
Mary? I
Yeah,
don't
they're
remember
at the
that.
Queen Mary.
When?
That's where Hershey is. Hershey, they
Where-
keep talking about her being on a boat, and it turns out it's the Queen Mary, which is in Long Beach, right?
Oh, but this is earlier in the story.
It's the little bit.
No,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
she was downtown.
No, she was on the Queen Mary.
She was on the Queen Mary? I thought
Yeah.
she was downtown.
No, they really play fast and loose with
Okay.
how close
Mulholland and
Mulholland
Queen Mary.
is to Sunset, and how close the Capitol Records building is to, you know what I mean?
Well, there could have been some, like, caving in, and, like, maybe they moved the boat closer now. There's less land.
Oh,
I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All that, like, let's just say, like, West LA's gone, and, like, I don't know. You'd have to lose a lot, but
You'd have to lose a lot.
Yeah.
Well, let's hit him with the Shimizu Heat.
So
who do you think has got the heat?
that's a good question. You know, we talked about her. We don't even know her name, but the gal who plays the Talisama,
Yeah.
she's the Muslim South Dakota girl. She had a nice turn. Like, if I was her agent, I'd be so psyched for her in this moment, because she doesn't get a lot of real estate, and she crushes. So I'd say she's got some Shimizu heat. And then, of course, like, Snake. It's just good to see Snake back.
Valeria Golino. Valeria Golino.
Yeah, she was good. And who do you got for some Shimizu heat?
You know, I'm going to throw in Buscemi. I'm going to say Buscemi, like,
Oh,
at this
yeah.
point, like, mid-90s, he's really got the heat. Like, he's been doing, like, Con Air, and he, you know, or maybe Con Air was after this, but he's, you know, he's going to be doing Armageddon pretty soon. He's doing indie stuff. He's doing art house stuff. He was on The Adventures of Pete and Pete. Like, he's working Reservoir Dogs. You know, anything you put him in, he excels in. And so I'm going to say at this point, like, Buscemi's really got Shimizu heat.
Is this pre-Trees Lounge or post-Trees Lounge?
That is a really good question. I believe
I don't know
this
in the
would
timeline.
be
But you're right. You're reminding me of Reservoir Dogs too, and that's probably before this.
Reservoir
I'm
Dogs
not-
is definitely before this.
Yeah. But he's getting into big studio movies. Yeah. He's like really leaving the indie world.
Ooh, this came out in May of '96. Okay.
Oh, this movie? I thought it was an August release. Okay.
No, Trees Lounge came out in May.
Oh, right around the same time.
Yeah, we
Interesting.
definitely. Buscemi's got he's directing and starring in his own indie movies. Living
So
in
he's
a-
like jumping from he's jumping from studio to indie. He's doing it all. He's like
Yeah.
living the dream.
So you voting for this president?
I can't. He comes off as a nut. He makes a terrible first impression. He's
Yeah.
too like crazy religious. He's not like driven by science or reason. So I can't get on board with him.
Yeah, this is a pretty easy no.
Yeah, he's an easy no. And then if you were say writing our letterboxed review, what would you say about this film?
Oh God, that's a good question. Why didn't I think? I knew this was coming and I didn't think about it.
Well, I'll start off. I'll
Yeah.
give you some time. So I'll give it. It's 4 out of 5. It's 5 stars, right?
Mhm.
I'm gonna go. After hearing the stuff, I'm gonna go 3.5 stars, and then you can give your stars, and we'll get the average. And then I would say it's great to see Kurt Russell back in the iconic anti-hero Snake Plissken skin. Loved seeing this sci-fi post-apocalyptic world that is so prescient when we look back at it 30 years ago. All the things Carpenter was obsessed with have come to fruition, and yet it gets a little geographically confusing once they're inside the island of Los Angeles, but plenty of fun and some nice surprises along the way.
All right, cool. I'm gonna go 3 stars, and I wish it was higher. I'm not good at giving star ratings, but I'll just go 3. And one thing that I actually do like to do with Letterboxd reviews is I like to just kind of like a line that I really liked that I just put in there that I also feel like maybe has something to do with like the overall view of the movie. That's something I like to do. So I'm gonna put this one out there, which is a quote from when he's like in the submarine and he's going like, he's pushing the batteries to 100%, and Stacy Keach is like, slow down. He says, "You slow down, dickhead. I'm the one that's dying." And so I think that would be my Letterboxd review of "You slow down, dickhead. I'm the one dying."
That encapsulates the story really well because
Yeah.
the nuclear battery was overheating.
The nuclear battery was overheating. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think that if John Carpenter shared like an estate next to Clint Eastwood, let's say, somewhere in Montecito, and they were neighbors, and like Clint Eastwood's tree is like dropping fruit and leaves in fucking Carpenter's pool, and like it keeps fucking breaking the filter? Play that out. What happens next?
Truthfully, this is what I think. I think Carpenter gets a chainsaw himself, and he goes out and he cuts all the limbs off, like directly along the property line. He's like, I didn't touch any of your tree that was on your property. I was.
And what does
straight up
Eastwood
here.
do? And then what does fucking Eastwood do
Well,
when he
Eastwood-
comes home?
he's going to be so mad, and he's going to be like, why didn't you just talk to me about it? But you know what Eastwood's not going to do? He's not going to go to the city because he doesn't believe in centralized government.
No, but is he going to like plant another fucking tree, or is he going to do a night mission and kill one of Carpenter's trees? Or do you think he's going to let it go?
I think he's going to have to let it go because I think you can't out-grump Carpenter. There's no winner.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But I love this line of thought.
I was just thinking about it. Yeah. I was just because these guys are vigilante. You know, they believe in the individual, and
Yeah.
there's not a lot of justice. What
I think
justice
if
you can get, you have to grab it yourself.
Toe to toe, I think Carpenter wins every time. I love Clint, But man, toe to toe, I think Carpenter wins every time.
You might be right, because Clint wants to be a musician, but Carpenter does the score. I don't know if Clint does. Clint might do the score for some of his movies, but Carpenter's more of an orchestrator, and he's got, I think he's a more, you know why? Because he never got sucked into the vanity of acting.
Yeah.
And Clint still is like, he's got that pretty boy need a little bit. That's his Achilles heel.
Yeah.
You just play on that a little bit. All right. Are we going to do the 5 questions next?
No, I don't think we need to ask ourselves 5 questions. I was thinking that I'll do is we'll put up with some that we haven't released. Like I think we have like an Amanda Dobbins one that we haven't released. So we'll put that one up this week in place of it. But any other housekeeping we need to do before we sign off?
No, I just want to say thanks to all the folks who have followed us over to Patreon during this experiment. Totally appreciate you. And we're going to have some good in-studio sessions now that our schedules are opening up.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks everybody for listening. This has been Second in Command, formerly a Veep Rewatch podcast, but now we do this. You can find us on Patreon.com. Go to patreon.com/Second in Command. And you can subscribe there. The first episode of every month, completely free and available to everybody. After that, you got to be a subscriber. We do 5 questions with all of our guests. That's only available to Patreon subscribers. Extra stuff, as much as we can fit in there, we're throwing in. So check it out.
Yeah.
All right. Hit them with a piece.
Last bit of business. First of all, peace, of course. But do we have a Letterboxd up yet? Of course. Yeah. Tim does all the work, the technical work.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You can follow us on Letterboxd. Second in Command. Second in Command podcast. I will double check on that. But if it has our little logo on there, that's us.
Okay. All right. Thanks for listening. Happy Memorial Day. Peace.